Hey guys, it's Adam from Lucipixel, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about a curious topic. And by curious I mean, why in the world do we have these feelings or have to deal with these particular obstacles in the first place? That's what I find curious. And what this thing is anxiety, fear, insecurity, sometimes even downright depression when it comes to our work, or when it comes to presenting our work, or when it comes to comparing our work to others. It's very often something that holds us back. It's something that keeps us from taking that step forward because we are afraid to go public with our work. We're afraid that it's not good enough. We're afraid that it won't be accepted. We're afraid that it might be taken wrong, misinterpreted, or insulted. And it's curious that we feel this because of the social aspect of our work, which is something that us artists have to contend with. We don't hide behind a desk, crunching numbers. Our work, in order to succeed, our work needs to be shown to others. One of the things that we are as artists is performers. In my course, one of the things that I like to address and teach is bridging the gap between producing imagery and being an entertainer, being somebody who provides entertainment in any which way, shape, or form you choose to your audience. It's a big topic. So as such, we can be fearful of how that performance is received. But I'm going to teach you a few lessons today when it comes to performing, and give you a few personal examples of this that are actually happening right now as we speak, or will be in the process of happening very, very soon, that will help you hopefully come to terms with this and overcome it. The first lesson comes from my sister, Jessica, who is only a few years younger than me now, but I still regard as my younger sister because that's a title that I own. And I will hold on dearly to that, even though the gap is very narrow at this point in our lives. But I remember watching her career, watching her artistic self grow as a performer, as a singer. My sister is a singer among many other things and has an absolutely beautiful voice, a voice you could listen to endlessly. And I remember when she used to work at a little local bar and started doing performances for small crowds at first, but then those crowds grew and grew and grew. And she started doing shows all over the city. But I remember how she was at the beginning when she first started to perform, and how that changed moving forward. How she relaxed into the role of being a live performer. At the beginning, being somebody who was tall, around 5'9", 5'10", and being new to singing altogether, would almost crutch herself on the mic stand. She would hold on to the mic, she would look up at the TV that was up over her head, and the only thing that would move would be her finger tapping on top of the mic to the sound of the music, to the beat of the music, and she'd sing. Her voice was beautiful. She didn't look at the audience, or looked at the audience very seldom, and just stared up at the TV and sang, stiff as a board, almost as if she was trying to hide behind the mic. It was kind of funny. And she did this for weeks, months. Anytime I'd go to see her show, she was always propped behind that mic, and she would hold on to it with both hands and she would sing. And then one day, it was a little bit more of a private local show. It wasn't anything too big. And one of her friends, a fellow musician, decided to get up on stage while she was in the middle of singing a song, and lifted the mic off of the stand, grabbed the stand, walked away with it, and handed her the mic that was only tethered to the cord. And she laughed because she knew why. And everybody else knew too. And the moment he took that stand away, something changed. Her shoulders dropped. Her eyes dropped. And she looked down at the audience and she smiled. She actually connected to her audience for the first time. And as time passed, it was what initiated her relaxation, so to speak. And as time passed, not only did her body relax as a performer, but her mind relaxed too. She stopped worrying so much about how she looked up on that stage. And she instead started to focus on her message, her performance. A song is, after all, a message. One of the things I love is watching how Harry Connick Jr. would teach teach singers on American Idol. A real musician, somebody who I've loved my whole life and somebody I've gone to see live shows numerous times. And he would always remind the singers that they're singing a song, and the song is a message. Don't focus on how cool your voice sounds or how all the fancy tricks you're pulling off with your vocals. Just focus on the message. And to their surprise, very often that message might be something very sad or very melancholy when they were singing very upbeat and jazzy. And it made them feel silly for the fact that they didn't even realize that at the first place. And when you watch Harry Connick Jr. perform, or you listen to him play music, he's playing a feeling. And he's connected to the feeling. And that, as such, thankfully, in his New Orleans upbringing and his blues and jazz upbringing, he was raised around very authentic musicians, and that taught him the right way. And that turned him into somebody who focused on the music and the message, and not on how he looked on stage or how he sounded on stage. He was worried about making that emotional connection with his audience. And that's what happened to my sister. She stopped worrying about how she looked on stage, or she stopped focusing on all those eyes watching her, and stopped caring altogether about that. And fast forward 5-10 years later, she went from being somebody who would almost literally hide behind the mic stand to somebody who could, if she did, fall flat on her ass, all 5'9", 5'10" of her, and laugh and get back up and keep singing. And wouldn't even get red in the face, wouldn't even get embarrassed, because it wasn't about her at that point. It was about the performance. I even remember, I might have even mentioned this in earlier art talks, Lady Gaga, who's not somebody I listen to regularly, but very much respect as a performer and as a person. I think she's a really wonderful person, and I love her message and I love her music for that reason. But there's this video that went around on YouTube and stuff like that, where she was doing a performance, she's singing, and as she's singing, she's stepping down off of the top of a grand piano, and the chair of that grand piano gives out, rolls over to the side, and she goes rolling back underneath the piano, ass in the air. She never got red in the face, she never got embarrassed, and her voice never even wavered for 1 second. She just got back up and kept singing. And that, to me, is testament to where a real professional mindset is, and furthermore, where a real performer's mindset is. Falling on her ass, or falling on her back, ass in the air, and in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers, didn't even faze her. And it was probably being shown on big screen, and she knew that it was going to be shown on YouTube. She didn't care. And because she didn't care, because that wasn't why she was there, because that wasn't what mattered, that video never really ended up going very viral. Because what makes people react in a negative or cringy way to a screw-up, like Lady Gaga's in a sense, is the emotional humiliation that comes with it, the vulnerability that it exposes. And because she wasn't vulnerable, there was nothing really to adhere to emotionally, was there? It was just something that happens, And she went on with her life. And for that brief moment, you see her as just another person. She's just a human who's doing a performance, just like my sister, just like you when you paint a picture. It teaches you where to focus. I remember, even as a performer, being somebody who did dance choreographies and stuff like that, how incredibly nervous people would get backstage before getting on stage. The changing room where everybody was getting set up and kind of going over the steps and everything like that, and everybody's dressed up, and girls were fixing their makeup and guys were fixing their makeup because it's salsa, right? So there's a lot of that stuff going on. And they would, they could hear the DJ call them down on stage, and one at a time they would go down on stage, they'd do their performance, you'd hear the cheering and the loud music, and then they'd come back up. Sometimes they'd come back up completely flustered. Sometimes they would come up completely furious and humiliated. Because the moment they got off that stage, they felt like any screw up they made was amplified 1,000 times. And they would come back up on stage and kick the walls and argue with each other and get frustrated or cry or, just lock themselves away from everybody for 10 minutes just so they could come down. The adrenaline was so palpable. The emotion was so palpable. And the reason why they were so vulnerable to that whatever screw up it was because everything was riding on their ego. Understandably so. We are very narcissistic creatures, aren't we? We are very concerned about our appearance to everybody else. So it's normal, especially if you're out doing your makeup and you've got this choreography and you want your moves to look good and you want your body to look good and you're wearing these very revealing bathing suit type of things or body tight suits and all that kind of stuff. It's a vulnerable state, isn't it? And when you screw up or fall on your ass in that bathing suit, you feel even more like an ass. But comparing to professional performers, some people fall on their ass and get humiliated and lock themselves up in their bedroom for a week. Other people just get back up and forget about it 5 seconds later. And again, I've witnessed it again. When somebody screws up on stage, when you see it in their face, that's when you cringe. When you look in their face and they go, "Oh my God, I made such an ass of myself. Oh my God." Then you go, "Oh shit, that's terrible. Oh my God, that's so embarrassing." Because you're reflecting their feeling. But if they fall on their ass and they're bleeding from the nose or whatever, which can happen, and they get back on their stage, get back up and keep smiling and finish their performance and finish strong, people cheer for them and forget about it 5 seconds later because people aren't feeling that person's humiliation. They're only focused on themselves. Even though they're watching a performer, they're only invested in that performer's performance until they walk off stage, and after that, they forget about them because their thoughts go back to themselves. This is something you need to realize. This is something you need to master and focus on as an artist, because even though you don't get up on stage in a tight suit with your hair slicked back and makeup and all that kind of stuff, at least not when you're painting, you are exposing yourself to your audience. And as such, there's a vulnerability that comes with it. There's a fear of judgment that comes with it. And what I want to tell you is the way to get rid of that fear is to realize that you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for them. When you get up on that stage, hypothetically speaking, with a painting, when you present it online to people, realize that your focus should not be in impressing people. Your focus should not be in being regarded as cool and superior. Your goal should be to touch people as authentically as possible. And that should be where your energy is invested as a painter. What you create, how you create it, how you create your characters, what kind of colors do you use, how you manipulate your composition and your visual storytelling, your set design, your costume design. All of these things should be an emotional investment of yourself that you're trying to share with your audience. Those are the obstacles that you want to overcome. So when you present it to people, if people look at it and say it looks stupid, well, maybe they're just trolling you, which happens. Maybe they don't get the message. And if they don't get the message, then you as a professional need to listen to that and say, where did I go wrong? Why aren't they feeling what I wanted them to feel? And focus on that for the next time. Maybe my intention was to make people feel a little bit scared and a little bit repelled by the disgust of this image. Or maybe I wanted people to feel romantic and nostalgic. And they didn't quite get that reaction. Why not? Revisit yourself, revisit your art, and scrutinize it from that perspective. Don't take it personally. It's not a personal attack on you. You wanted to connect emotionally with somebody else, and they didn't quite feel it. It's the equivalent of walking up to somebody and, rubbing them on the shoulder because they look like they're upset, and they pull their shoulder away, and you go, I wonder why they did that. You take yourself out of your own ego, and you replace that with empathy for others. Meryl Streep said herself, and I've quoted her numerous times, empathy is the most important quality a human being can ever possess. It isn't only what brings out the best in you, but it's also what helps you connect with others. When people reach out to you, it's because they want to feel a connection as well. You have to be sensitive to that connection. And also sensitive to whether or not it's the type of connection you want to make with other people. So that's phase 2. That's the evolution of this topic. And that is creating the right type of connections with people. When you upload your work on a site like ArtStation, for instance, which is the popular crowd nowadays, right? It used to be DeviantArt. It's been other sites in the past. Now it's ArtStation. When you upload your work, there are 2 ways you can upload it, or at least 2 attitudes you can take towards what it is you're uploading and why. The first is uploading it and hoping for some kind of validation. The number of likes that it gets, the amount of comments it gets, how many people go out of their way to say, hey, I love your work, type of thing. How much attention you get from it, how many followers you get from it. And that's a popularity contest, right? Now, I don't mean to make it sound pathetic or petty, but that is what it is, right? You walk into a crowd, you have a nice new hat. If people laugh at it, you're going to be embarrassed and you're never going to wear the hat again. If people say, wow, nice hat, you look so good, then you'll wear it every day, right? It's social acceptance. It's a popularity contest, which, fine. That's fine for what it is. When you don't get those likes, when you don't get those comments, well, your ego prevails, right? And you feel bad, you feel unsatisfied, you feel unvalidated, you might even feel like you wasted your time painting something because nobody cares. So you can see how your thoughts and feelings and your vulnerabilities, your focuses are very inward and very disconnected from the very audience you wish to connect with, right? Now, flip the coin. On the other side of the coin can be you are trying to connect your audience to something inside you, okay? It's still coming from inside you, but your focus is no longer on you. Your focus is on them. It's outside of yourself. It's not about how cool and sexy and epic and superior you are. You are studying and focusing on a specific audience. An audience you want to connect with. You produce a piece of artwork and you put it out there. Some people, most people in most cases, are going to completely ignore what you've done. Some people, however, are going to connect with it. Maybe 2 people or 1 person will connect with it. That one connection should be precious to you. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. Pay attention if that person does you the great favor of commenting and telling you what they like about it, apart from just generically saying, I like it. Focus on what they say. What is it that they like about your artwork? Oh my God, I love the flow of that fabric. It feels blah, blah, blah. Okay? Listen to that. Because they're letting you know what it is that resonated with them from an artistic perspective on a personal level. Maybe somebody else is going to make another comment too. Maybe somebody else is going to make a comment as well. And you're going to start to notice how people connect with you, what it is about your art that people are connecting to. And you ask yourself the question, is that what I wanted them to feel? Did I want them to notice the dress, or did I want people to notice her expression? Or did I want people to notice the overall mood of the lighting? What was your focus? What were you trying to communicate with? And start to become a better listener to your audience, Okay, I'm not talking about the masses. Screw the masses. You're never going to make everybody happy. That's impossible. And it's also pointless. You want to connect to specific people. And when you connect with them, you want to connect with them in the most authentic, meaningful way possible. You want to have control over what it is that they feel as much as possible, because you're trying to be a clear communicator to them, as I am trying to be with you right now. And as you grow artistically, you're not going to grow off in 1,000 different directions like tentacles, spreading across ArtStation like a virus. You're going to start to fashion a following of people that get you, that get your artwork, that understand you on an emotional level, and that you understand them. And it starts to become a personal connection. It stops being about you looking good, and it starts to be about you actually making an impact on people's lives. And something remarkable happens when you start to do that. When you start to really connect with that side of yourself and connect with that side of your audience, they actually start listening to you. Who are you more likely to pay attention to? Somebody who's telling you all the great things about themselves? Somebody that's reminding you constantly about their achievements and how smart they are and how capable they are? I know there's a certain political figure that probably popped into mind the moment I said that. How much of what that person says actually matters to you? None at all. Even if you like that person, even if you follow that person, even if you care about that person, when people go off talking about themselves, you're just being a sounding board to their own ego, right? Now, that's not to mean don't talk about yourself. Of course you need to talk about yourself. You need to share. You need to open up. That's hugely important. But if that's all people do, particularly as performers, it's hard to connect with them. It's hard to listen to them. But when somebody stops and looks you right in the eyes, when somebody says something to you and waits to see how you react, and then feels your reaction and reacts to your reaction, they immediately make it about you. When Lady Gaga got up on stage and she did that romantic song, that duet, that piano duet, which I am really freaking sick of listening to because they play it on the radio every 5 seconds. The reason why everybody loved the song is not because it's the most beautifully sung or the most beautiful love song of all time. No, it's because when they looked at the two of them together, they did authentically look like they were in love, didn't they? Lady Gaga invests herself 1,000% into what she does. She completely becomes what it is she's singing. And you feel it. The same way when Meryl Streep's children are taken away from her. You feel it. The same way when Brad Pitt, gets hurt and beaten, gets the shit kicked out of him. You feel it. It's because regardless of how gorgeous and body perfect these people are, the reason why you care about what they do is because they are stepping outside of their ego and they are becoming something. You know, Brad Pitt is somebody who's given the best looks and the best body any guy could ever dream for. But he didn't bank on that gift he was given. He instead invested himself into being a great actor and a very authentic person. And when you listen to him talk, and when you hear about his relationships, and when you watch his performances, you completely get lost in his performance because it's never about him in the first place. It's about who he is becoming. It's who he is feeling. It's who he's empathizing with, whose shoes he's filling. Right? And if I was sitting here talking to you right now, and I was sharing these thoughts and these feelings with you, trying to get you guys to feel like Adam is really the smartest, most profound guy out there. He's the wisest. He's the coolest. He really has his shit together. He's just so great. Then none of you would care about a word that came out of my mouth. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of hard work putting my ego in my back pocket to really be honest with you. But I know that that's the only way I'm ever going to get you to feel what I feel, and to learn the lessons that I've learned in my life on an emotional level. Because if I'm just trying to share facts and info with you, that's going to go in one ear and out the other, because it's not until you feel something that it sticks. It's not until something becomes a part of your heart and a part of your soul that it becomes a part of your life. How many times have you been taught lessons, or how many times have you been corrected by your parents or by your peers or by your teachers, and all of that information went in one ear and out the other? It didn't have any impact on your life. But then somebody connects with you on a personal, emotional level, and you just suck in every bit of information they have to share, and it completely warps the direction of your life. There's the proof. So when it comes to sharing yourself with people, what I really strongly recommend you do, after you've developed your technique and you've built your fundamentals, which you'll be doing for the rest of your life, once you've trained yourself, right? You're not just walking in out of nowhere and trying to connect, but you're putting some academics behind it, and you're putting some technical training behind it. As an artist, you're a performer. As a performer, you're a communicator. And as a communicator, what you're trying to communicate is what other people care about and what matters to them. So the best way to help other people grow and feel what you want them to feel is not to be a great talker. It's to be a great listener. And when you start to listen, when you take your message outside of your own ego and it becomes a form of communication, you can get up on that stage and you can fall on your ass 1,000,000 times, and you'll just keep getting back up, and you'll just keep on singing. And that's what you should do. Because unless you're willing to be vulnerable, unless you're willing to make a sacrifice, unless you're willing to be honest and be raw, then what that means is your ego is still calling the shots a little bit too much. You don't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to be anything extremist or shocking. You just have to be real. There is a ton of power and potency in honesty. You don't believe me? Look at Norman Rockwell's work. Look at the subjects that he paints. I teach a lot of Norman Rockwell. He's a big part of my curriculum as a teacher. And when he paints a picture, notice that none of his pictures are epic. None of his paintings are grandiose and fantastical. They're very down to earth. And what he does is he pulls you into the everyday moments of people's lives that make you smile. If you read up on Rockwell, which I didn't do a lot of, but my students have, and a lot of them have taught me a lot about Rockwell's process, in the sense that he was known for traveling around the world. Not around the world, but all across the United States, working with different models and working with different locations and really working hard to find the perfect, most authentic actors. There's even this episode of Antiques Roadshow where there's a woman, an older woman, who presented a painting which she knew was an authentic Rockwell painting because she was the little girl in it. And in it, Rockwell, something that would definitely not go by today's standards, even pricked her on the bottom of her foot with a needle in front of her parents, of course, to get her to cry, because he wanted those tears to be authentic and not look made up and hammy, right? Authenticity was everything. Look at The Incredibles, a movie about superheroes in superhero costumes with big explosions and villains and all that kind of stuff. The big epic moments are not the ones that you connect with, are they? It's when Elastigirl walks by the mirror and stops for a moment to check her butt out in the mirror and then sighs, right? Or Bob, who wants to get himself in shape and tries to squeeze himself into a super suit. Or Edna Mode, who looks at him through the camera and goes, wow, you're really getting fat. All right, come in, right? It's those real day-to-day moments that make you connect. It's the authenticity. It's not the epicness. Maybe you are an authentically epic person. Maybe you're one of those 1 in a million. Then if you be epic, then your epic is always going to kick ass and it's always going to be well received because you're an epic person. But if you're not, don't try to be. And if you're flawed, if you have bad hair, if your teeth are crooked, if you've got a fat ass, then embrace it. Be yourself. You don't have to embellish. Just be yourself. And whenever you perform, try to find that authentic part of yourself. Try to give your characters fat asses too, because you can relate to fat asses. And that's something that your audience are really going to appreciate. They're going to smile and laugh with you because they know you're coming from a real place. When you do this, it'll no longer be about your ego. The prospect of, quote, putting yourself out there will no longer scare you. It's just going to be one step in the process of connecting with your audience, of getting to know who your audience are. And it's that which will also help you evolve your art. And that has to do with every facet of art that you decide to undertake, be it drumming, cooking, painting, dancing, singing, whatever the case might be. The same rules apply to any art. My personal definition of art is whatever means necessary to connect with your audience on an emotional level. Me talking to you right now could be considered an art form in itself. The art of sharing your thoughts with people. The art of sharing your experiences with people. I use the same part of myself to talk to you today, to share these thoughts with you that I do in my paintings. Even if I'm painting a geisha assassin, right? I want my feelings to resonate through that. I want my sense of beauty and my sense of movement and rhythm to play into it. My heart's on this page. But I know that half of you looking at this won't feel a darn thing looking at it, and that's fine. To those of you who do connect with it, wonderful. Then I know that we communicate visually and most likely emotionally on a very similar level. And if you don't, you don't. There are hundreds of other artists out there for you to discover. And you will find that artist that connects with you and makes your heart soar. All right? So, with that said, thank you, of course, as always, for joining me and for sticking it out 36 minutes, where I really managed to make it short this week. But thank you for joining me as always. And of course, I love you with all my heart. And happy painting, and take care.